President Obama mocking the media this week, scolding them for going too soft on the Republican presidential nominee.
I sure do get frustrated with the way this campaign is covered. Donald Trump says stuff every day that used to be considered as disqualifying for being president. The press just gives up, and they just say, well, yeah, okay.
Now, on the other hand, Trump supporters say, just look at the latest headlines, and you'll see it's Hillary Clinton who gets a free pass from the press. So who's right and who's wrong? Hi, everybody. I'm David Asman. Welcome to Forbes on Fox. Let's go in focus to find out with Steve Forbes, Mike Ozanian, Elizabeth McDonald, Sabrina Schaefer, John Tamny, and Bruce Jepson. Steve, is the president right or wrong on this?
Oh, it's exactly the opposite, David, and he's a prime example of it. When he did that, you can keep your doctor. The mainstream media, lamestream media, hardly referred to it afterwards. They'd have pounded it if that had been a Republican. Colin Powell, 2 weeks ago, in public, said Hillary Clinton, he said it diplomatically, was a liar, hardly covered by the lamestream media, and on it goes. Her health issue, out there for months, but only till she collapsed after leaving the 9/11 remembrance ceremonies early did it finally become a mainstream media issue. So they go easy on the Democrats, hard on the Republicans. It's been that way for decades.
And Bruce, just look at some of these headlines. USA Today, bogus Trumponomics. CNN, I'd risk jail to publish Donald Trump's taxes. Politico, Donald Trump's shortest attribute isn't his fingers. I mean, we could say a lot about these headlines, but what do you think?
Well, I mean, let's just take this week, because the president, when he spoke in Philadelphia with his Reagan-esque, like 60% approval ratings, he's talking about a particular day. The New York Times had the liberal New York Times had 5 stories on Hillary Clinton's health issue, and she's actually examined by an internist as opposed to a person who prescribes heartburn medication. And I mean, this goes both ways. And Trump I think the president wants more serious. Yeah. Now that we know that he was born here, I think he's due some serious coverage of this campaign.
Well, Emac, the fact is that those New York Times headlines were factual. I mean, she did withhold information about her pneumonia for 48 hours. She did have a pneumonia. I mean, whereas the headlines that I show, the anti-Trump headlines, were kind of editorializing in the news pages.
Yeah, and, about the fat fingers, yes, certainly that one. And, there were headlines, quoting Colin Powell as saying Trump's a national disgrace, he's an international pariah. What's striking about this, it's President Obama who's again trying to the Beltway henhouse echo chamber when he's attacking, complaining about the media, when he's the worst in attacking the media with not fulfilling FOIA requests, Freedom of Information Act requests, or just basically threatening to prosecute reporters as well.
So Sabrina, what do you think? Who's right? Is the president right saying that Trump's getting a free ride?
Well, it's a little bit of a mixed bag from where I'm sitting, David, but it always makes me laugh when someone on the left decides to scream about media bias. I mean, cry me a river. This is hardly, a huge problem for them. But I do think that in some respects, the media did go a little easy on Donald Trump during the primary season. I think they've been a little tougher on him since the general election started in earnest. But I think both candidates have so many deep flaws that it's been sort of good fodder on both sides.
Yeah, but John, to suggest that Trump is, I just showed the headlines. And we had a lot more than just those 3, by the way. To suggest he's getting a free ride seems insane to me.
Oh, yeah, President Obama's remarks are absurd. The media have been very vicious with Trump, and I would argue with good reason a lot of the time. I just wish they'd be equally vicious with the other side. We had a redistributionist policy crack-up between Sanders and Clinton during the primaries, and they didn't talk about it at all. Where was the coverage of these awful ideas coming from?
Well, Mike, I'm wondering if it matters. We just got a poll out. Gallup put out a poll this week showing that 68% of the public doesn't much think that the press is giving a real story. So maybe it doesn't matter what the press says.
I don't think it does, David. Look, years ago it would have, right? We wouldn't have seen Hillary Clinton on videos, sort of wobbling around and all her coughing fits and her apparent seizures, whatever that was. We wouldn't have known about it, but we do now because it goes viral soon after it happens.
Well, that's true.
And in this day and age, I think because of people's mistrust of media, people get a lot of their stuff from online sources that they do trust.
And Steve, there are sometimes, even before viral media, even before there was an internet, back in 1980, the press hated Ronald Reagan. They said if Ronald Reagan is elected, we're going to go to war in a month. The economy is going to be even worse than it is now. And the public said, to heck with it. We like the guy.
Yeah, the key thing is knowing how to get your message out there and staying on message. We'll see if Donald Trump has learned that in the last couple of weeks. He seems to have. How long that'll last, we'll see. But in terms of coverage, again, on the Democratic side, if there's a scandal there, bad story there, it's only 1 or 2 days. The New York Times is making up for a lost time in the last 6 months when there's a real question about her health.
Right. Well,
and so it's the shortage of coverage that is the key. If they want to kill you, they repeat the story day after day after day.
And Bruce, when it comes time to really grilling Hillary the way they really grilled Trump on things, they throw a lot of softball questions. We have some sort of a group of thoughts of sound bites that we put together of the way the press treats Hillary, at least on the press plane. Let's play them.
How are you doing? How are you feeling? I'm doing great. Thank you so much. You might want to do it. I'll talk about that later, too. I'll talk about that later. That'll be tonight after the newscast. Could you just give us a... I am so sad. I know, I really am. It's really a loss. Madam Secretary, however, is coming back. So that's something to look forward to. Is that odd to watch that? No, I actually get a big kick out of it.
Bruce, if I was the editor of that reporter asking her what television show she's watching, I'd call the next minute and say, what the heck are you wasting our time for? You had the time to ask her a serious question. You asked her what she's watching on TV.
Well, you know what's funny about this and all these complaints about Hillary not having press conferences is I had a wise old editor of mine back in the day at the Chicago Tribune who said, you should be focused on stories that people pick up the newspaper for because they can't get them anywhere else, especially in this day and age. And you have these D.C. lemmings, you know, all wanting this. You'll get the same story at a press conference. Who wants a press conference? Go out and dig something up on these guys.
EMAC, I want serious questions about the emails answered, or at least put to Hillary Clinton. And so far, it's very rare to find that happening.
Yeah, and you know what? Bruce mentioned the president's approval rating. Well, you know, the press has been given a hard time by the administration. And that's maybe why his approval rating is falsely high. He's used a bully pulpit to bully the press. And, you know, Chuck Grassley, by the way, on the emails, he said the American people, he took to the Senate floor, the American people only have a very small slice of what happened with the private server, and that there's misleading and inaccurate information about the server right now in the media. Yeah. So really, the Obama administration has gotten a pass on the worst economic recovery since the Great Depression.
I want to go back to Steve for a second, because, Steve, if you had a reporter out there on the press plane asking questions of Hillary Clinton about what she watched on television when there was all this serious stuff to talk about, what would you have done with that reporter?
I would have done what you suggested and say, why am I paying you to ask softball questions? We want real information. And you saw with Matt Lauer, when he started to press her a little bit on the emails, he was pilloried by the press. How dare you question her? How dare you ask follow-up questions? My gosh, how rude you are.
Well, that's a good point. And Sabrina, it leads me to ask whether or not the press is afraid of asking her tough questions, because then the whole establishment comes down on them and criticizes them for either being anti-woman or anti-liberal or whatever.
Right, no, because I actually thought that Matt Lauer was moving in the right direction. I was surprised how much criticism there was against him. But I think sometimes this comes down less about bias and about sort of laziness. I think you'll recall that, you know, on Friday, Donald Trump held a press conference, and for almost a full hour, a lot of the cable news stations just had a camera on an empty podium. So at some point you wonder, isn't there something else you want to cover and dig a little deeper yourself?
Well, I got to be honest, I've wondered about the press for a long time. But coming up next, you